Hey, today we are going to be talking about 3 tips that you can use to curb indulgent eating on summer vacations for women over 50. The weather's getting better. Hopefully, the pandemic is calming down and people are ready to get out and travel. If you are a woman over 50 who has spent a lifetime dieting, you may be starting to feel anxious or even obsessed about food coming up. We're going to get into it and 3 tips you can use to deal with it. In this video, I'm Cassie Christopher, a registered dietitian, emotional eating expert, and worksite wellness consultant, and I help women over 50 stop the food obsession and medically treat obesity so that they can eat with joy instead of eating to seek joy. So back to feeling obsessed with food on summer vacations. Why are we so worried about this indulgent eating? It comes down to the impact of all or nothing dieting. And all or nothing dieting is where you feel like you either have to eat perfectly or what's the point? You can't have just one cookie because if you do, you end up thinking you might as well finish the whole box because you weren't supposed to have one cookie to begin with. Or if you reach your calories, points, or carb targets by noon, well, you may as well just give up and restart again tomorrow. That way of thinking, and really that's the solution available to people who are struggling with making consistently healthy choices. So if you are thinking that way, it's not your fault, but it's important to recognize that when that is the way that you're thinking about food, it leads to some anxiety because you don't feel like you can do moderation. You can't just indulge, and that makes you stop trusting yourself around food. And when you don't trust yourself around food, you don't trust yourself around indulgent food on vacation, and that leads to this anxiety. Okay, so what can you do about it? Well, first of all, tip number 1 is do not restrict, because restriction is only going to make things worse. And that's because of a phenomenon called the forbidden fruit phenomenon. This is real. When you put food on a list of things not to eat, you become more interested in the food. You think about the food more often. You are more motivated. You have more dopamine in the brain, causing you to go after that food. And then when you do inevitably end up eating it because of this obsession, right? You have the self-criticism and the guilt to go along with it. You beat yourself up for it. And so restriction usually leads to, diving into those foods that you're trying to restrict, indulging. The good news is the best time to learn about what triggers you to eat in the first place and how to care for yourself, your physical and emotional needs without the indulgent eating is actually after one of these eating incidences. So in the link, in the description, you can go get the link to my debriefing worksheet, and that's going to help you think through an eating incident that you recently had without self-judgment so that you can actually problem solve and you can learn what are the cues, what are the warning signs, what are the triggers that happen way before the eating that you can notice in advance and respond to before you get to that panicky, urgent, I have to eat it now, where it's really hard to, stop yourself and do something else. The second tip here is to identify what is important to you on this vacation ahead of time and give yourself permission to indulge. Now, this is honestly my standard event advice. So think about what indulgences are important to you to enjoy in advance and then give yourself permission to enjoy the heck out of it. If you're going to Paris, give yourself permission to eat croissants. If I went to Italy, I would give myself permission to enjoy a glass of red wine a day. Maybe, 2 croissants, maybe 2 glasses of red wine, whatever it is. If the beach brings back nostalgic memories of vacationing as a child, or rather having ice cream on the beach, because that is a true thing for me, make sure when you're at the beach, you allow yourself some ice cream. So thinking through what's important to you, what's gonna make you feel good, what's gonna give you joy, and how can you give yourself permission to do those things. And when you are emotionally satisfied because you savored the heck out of that food, you won't feel like you need to then go and reach for more indulgences on things that you don't really actually care about. One note I want to make about this is mindfulness may not feel safe for people who are struggling with either an eating disorder or a history of trauma. And even if you've worked through your disorder or your history of trauma with a mental health professional, you may not know how to apply those wins and that way of thinking about food and yourself, to food rather, thinking about yourself to food. So if that's you working with a professional to help you learn to eat with joy rather than eating to seek joy is going to be important. And you can find the link in the description to find out more about working with me. All right, tip number 3, eat regularly, especially your protein. It is so easy when you're out and about, away from your routine, to skip meals, or you might even think that you should skip meals if you know you have a big indulgent dinner coming later. But in reality, skipping meals can increase your stress hormones, leading to more anxiety, and actually cause a much bigger appetite than you may have had if you had eaten something. Protein foods are a great way to keep your blood sugar stable. A couple of examples of protein foods are nuts, protein bars, hard-boiled eggs, Greek yogurt, individual servings of tuna. You can look for pole caught for lower mercury. Single-serve shelf-stable tuna is so easy to take, in your bag. Similar to individual packets of peanut butter, look for no sugar. These are all great protein ideas to help you, eat on the go so that you don't get too hungry and those stress hormones don't get too wily. So if you want help to remember these tips next time you're planning for a vacation, or you're wondering what happened to you after an indulgence, download my free worksheet, link in the description. That is the #1 strategy for women in midlife and beyond to stop overeating without obsessing about food. And this worksheet is going to take you through, the step-by-step way to evaluate what happened. Was it that maybe you didn't eat regularly? Was it that something emotional happened? Was it you were super stressed because you were traveling and traveling is stressful? Whatever it may be, this worksheet is going to help you think through what your specific triggers for eating are so that you can care for them without food and get that consistently healthy eating that you're after. Thanks so much for joining me today. Bye-bye.